Greetings everyone, it's IT2. So today I have a book review. I will be doing a Halloween wrap-up, probably on Halloween or the day after. I've been keeping track of all the movies, TV shows. It's been like a month and a half or so. I started doing this spooky season stuff in like September, halfway through. And I started keeping track of all the TV shows, movies, and books that are Halloween related. I haven't really watched anything other than Halloween stuff, except for football and YouTube videos and stuff, for the most part. So I'm kind of behind on all my other TV shows. I think it's way more than I had last year, too, because last year I kind of did this. But anyway, this one, I only had like a few days left, so I'm trying to squeeze in as much stuff as I can. I'm trying to like watch a movie every day, cram 2 more books in. So I'm picking smaller books. This one is Michael Crichton, Eaters of the Dead, which I've been craving fantasy because I haven't read any in a month and a half. This turned out to be fantasy. I thought it was horror, but it's kind of horror at the same time. It's really weird. There's a movie based on this called 13th Warrior. 90s maybe it was made. It's got Antonio Banderas in it. And this is about an Arab guy who goes on an expedition to the north, like in Turkey, or like maybe north of Turkey, to like meet the Russian tribe called the Rus, that are basically still Vikings. So it's based on a true story, but it's not a true story. This guy named Ahmad Ibn Fadlan is the main character, and he's like a real person that actually did go on an expedition north to the like Russians or something, or Germanic people. And Michael Crichton kind of took this idea of if you had something that's based on reality and you kind of work backwards, and like, what does he say at the end of this? It's kind of based on Beowulf. He tried to make it into the story of Beowulf because people that thought the Iliad was true, and they ended up finding Troy and Mycenae. And Arthur Evans believed the myth of the Minotaur, and he ended up finding like the Palace of Knossos on the island of Crete. And so the guy had this idea about the route of Ulysses and the Odyssey, and it turned out like some of it was true. So he thought, like, what if I had like a kernel of truth, and I made a fictional story based on it, and made it weave into the tale of the epic of Beowulf, which I didn't even know till the end. I'd already kind of suspected this had something to do with Beowulf because at one point there's these monsters. They call them what was that weird name they call them? They're not really monsters. They're supposed to be like Neanderthals. You find out at the end. The Windall, which I thought maybe could mean Wendigos. Maybe came from that. And this guy that's the leader of the Vikings is named Bullywhip. So instead of Beowulf, it's Bullywhip. And they go to this King Hrothgar, and he gives them like some supplies and stuff. One of the battle scenes, they get attacked by the Neanderthals. And the Vikings have made their houses in such a way that the doorways were short. So you had to lean forward when you come in, and when you lean forward, they just cut your head off as soon as you come through. I thought that was pretty dope. A lot of weird stuff about slaves, like the Viking traditions of how they bury people. Like if a Viking warrior died, one of the female slaves has to like decide to give up her life to be buried with him and stuff. And they would like, instead of shooting the arrow onto the boat, they would just light the boat on fire and push it out in the river. See, I don't know if maybe that's true or maybe that's something he made up. But I don't know. Some of this stuff I feel like it is really true stuff. But then again, it says like all these footnotes and stuff are fictional, but I'm pretty sure a lot of this is true stuff. And I was asking Haval about some of these customs about like things that are haram in Islam, like drinking out of a golden cup and having sex with a woman that's on her period. It's supposed to be like not cool with Islamic beliefs. And he said, yeah, I don't believe that. Like he knew it was a thing, but he didn't believe it. It's weird. They had these things like if somebody's sick, they would give them onion soup and they would smell and see if they could smell onions. Like if their stomach was pierced, the soup would leak out and they could smell it. Like weird things like that. There's a lot of cool stuff in this book. It's not very long either. I gave it 3 stars. Maybe it's 4 stars. But it's not written like Michael Crichton is telling a story. It's written as from Ibn al-Farad, or whatever his name is. Ahmad Ibn Fadlan. It's written like he's giving an account of this is what I saw. And a lot of times he would say, like, I saw it with my own eyes, which is just what he's writing. So that you make that, think that part is true, but it's not, because the whole thing's fictional. I don't know, maybe some of it did happen. It's kind of like blurs the lines between fact and fantasy. But yeah, there's these, the Neanderthals are like really hairy. For one part, they're on horseback. I don't know of any Neanderthals riding horses. And they called them like the worm of the fire-breathing worm dragon, something like that. And it's just a bunch of guys on horses, but from like they're in this mist, and it looks like a dragon breathing fire as they're coming at you with their torches in their hands. Maybe I don't understand why they called them that. Anyway, you keep finding all these statues around, like this fat woman with big boobs, like an idol that they would leave. And then it turns out they have like this mother that's the leader of all these guys, so they have to kill her, but they know they're in these like thunder caves, and they have guardians. So they go to these dwarves. I was kind of surprised to find there's dwarves in this, like little people. I guess back then it was like they thought they were lucky if you had a midget son or something, and they would send them off. And this says they thought that they would live longer lives and they were like magical. Like maybe that's where our myth of dwarves came from. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it is. But like if you had a son that was a dwarf, you would send him off and it was considered a sign of good fortune. And then they're supposed to be really good at making weapons too. Also goes along with the fantasy dwarves. So they get them like some daggers and some sealskin ropes from these dwarves, because they're going inside these caves. It's not really big enough to swing a sword. So instead of going in the front, they go in the back. They have to go down this cliff on these sealskin ropes, and it's already dangerous, and they got to swim, and there's icy water, and you almost drown before you can get into the breathing spot, and then they kill this woman. Didn't really sound like Neanderthals, but the movie that Antonio Banderas in is very loosely based on this. He's always talking about, like, I'm not one of these Northmen. He's like trying to teach them about Islam and stuff, and the gods he believes and what they believe, and he doesn't understand it. And he keeps saying, I'm not a warrior. Like in the movie, it's one of the main things. Is like, I think in the movie he like slept with a king's wife or something, and he got in trouble, and he had to go with him to get rid of him. But in this, they had some kind of like rule about 13, the number 13. So you're supposed to have 12 warriors and somebody else that's not of the clan. So they chose him. And he didn't want to go because he's not a warrior. And then kind of over time, he kind of became a warrior, but not really. The whole time, he's still like scared out of his mind. Thought he was going to die. And there's only like one guy that speaks a little bit of Latin, which is not even his language, but he knows it enough that they can kind of communicate. That's got to be pretty scary. If you're going to a place to fight something, you don't know what it is, and you only got one guy. If he dies, you pretty much can't even communicate with your team. So it's pretty dope. Yeah, so I kind of recommend it. So anyway, now I'm reading City of Ghosts. This is, I think, supposed to be like a mid-grade kind of a children's book about this girl who has a friend who's a ghost named Jacob, and she thinks she's going on vacation, but her mother and father actually are writing a book about ghosts. They're like paranormal investigators or something, so they take her to Scotland. So I think this is a series, and the second book is like a different place. So it'll probably take me like 2 hours to read this, so I don't know. Get another book out. Other than that, I feel like I could maybe read The Dark Half or The Dead Zone, whichever one of those I have of Stephen King, but I'm kind of burnt out on Stephen King, even though I was meant to read like The Green Mile and Holly, which is a new book I don't even have yet, and the fantasy one, Fairy Tale. Maybe another one. There was like all these Stephen King books I needed to read this year, but I didn't get to them. I only got 2 months left. I'm gonna probably read something else. Also that Joe Hill book, Horns. Maybe I have time to read that, but there's only like 28, 23, 4 days. Yeah, I could probably read that in 4 days if I knock this one out today. Maybe, I don't know, but Yeah, so I'll make that other video here in a few days and do a wrap up.